We've got an amazing guest joining us here on the Jim Masters Show. Hey, everybody, Jim Masters here, your host. Thanks for joining us here in the program. You may recognize this sparkling face from television and film and so much more. Rob Stone, prolific actor and an incredible director and producer, joining us here on the Jim Masters Show. Hey, Rob, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Really cool to have you here. You and I were chatting before we went on the air. We're here on the East Coast in the New York area. You're there out in California. Followed your career for a long time. And one of the things that I've always liked, I want to say off at the top, is your dedication and your passion. When I was telling people in the industry and outside the industry that Rob Stone was coming on as a special guest, they're like, oh my God, I love Rob. I've worked with Rob. Rob's the best. Rob's dedicated. He's passionate. He's one of the nicest guys on the planet. And that's
paid
really
them all very well.
You paid them all. Your relatives faxed the intro to me, said, read it verbatim or else. But it's really cool. You've been doing your thing for many, many years. And as I mentioned, people recognize you, of course, Kevin Owens on the beloved Mr. Belvedere on ABC and so many other shows and specials and series. But it's when you hear that feedback from colleagues and from fans and viewers, it's pretty heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful and just feel like I'm so happy to have had the opportunity and still have the opportunity to work in the industry. I never really thought this was going to be a career, when things, started off. I'm in California now, grew up in Dallas, Texas. And to me, everything going on in like film and television was just kind of like, Oz, it didn't quite seem real, but it was exciting. And being a movie buff and TV fan, from a kid, always been fascinated with behind the scenes and movies and shows, but really never thought of it as a career until much later. So the fact that, I'm able to hear from people that they enjoyed, projects that I've been a part of is really, really heartwarming. So it's great to hear.
Dallas is a great, great city. We've been on many TV shoots there with my professional work and then through Richardson and just all those great areas. And, yet your parents, doctors, right, in the medical field, very accomplished, family. Was there anybody in the family that was into entertainment, or did your folks like take you to the theater, take you out to shows? What was the impetus, the inspiration that sort of, beat you early to want to pursue this as a career, as opposed to maybe following their footsteps and going into the medical field and things of that nature?
Yeah, no, great question. To answer your question, no, not really. So my dad is a physician, and I grew up, and he was the director of the Sammons Cancer Center in Dallas at Baylor Hospital. So quite different field. Amazing guy. He's a genius, and also my personal hero. And my mom is my other hero. And she wasn't a doctor, but she worked in urban studies. She raised my sister and I, and also got her graduate degree from SMU later after, raising her kids. And as I said, worked in urban studies at SMU and also in the psychology department of some different hospitals and organizations, and also just volunteered a great deal, around. She loved kids. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but she really dedicated, especially the latter part of her life, to just helping others and trying to help the community. So, but yeah, nobody really in entertainment. However, as you said, in terms of like taking us to the theater, they were huge lovers of the arts. And so they there's a place in Dallas you might be familiar with called the Dallas Theater Center.
Oh yeah.
And so they were subscribers, and they loved going to New York and seeing plays on Broadway. And they really instilled in both of us, my sister and I, a real love of and appreciation for the arts, I guess. But never pushed us, and they weren't directly involved. But having that exposure, I think, is really what, gave me that first curiosity about and really the kind of the wonder of people doing this for a living.
That curiosity sort of really came to fruition at age 13, right? First appearing on stage in production of the Santa Fe Sunshine at the Dallas Theater Center. Tell us about how that early exposure at such a young age as the early teens, that age of 13, sort of got the ball rolling for you as far as interest.
Yeah, good research, by the way. Yeah, it's you're exactly right. I mean, so I was always interested in plays, but really what happened, I mean, I was more interested at that time, at that age, in skateboarding, sports, and just kind of just being a kid. And then I had an opportunity because one of my best skateboarding buddies told me that he was taking some teen children's theater classes at the theater center, which they had for kids. Would I like to come along? I said yes. They had like railroad tracks outside behind the theater. So basically his pitch to me was, if we get bored in class, we can always go play Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid on the railroad tracks. And so I was like, okay, I'm in. So I started going really with him, just kind of as a lark, and really enjoyed it, but didn't take it too seriously. And what happened is I got an opportunity to audition for, as you said, a main stage production. It was a world premiere of Preston Jones' play Santa Fe Sunshine, and was lucky enough to get the part. And so every night after school, every day after school, for about 2 months, I was going to the theater and first going to rehearsals and then performing. And that's really where the bug bit, performing in front of a live audience. I was the only kid, in the show. Everybody else was adults. And so it was a great opportunity to see people really taking the craft seriously, and that were, theater trained actors, and some great actors, by the way. And, but, it also gave me a discipline of, you'd have to show up at a certain time and get ready and prepare. But really when it was performing in front of a live audience, that was really that's really what did it. And then from that point on, I just wanted to do more. Again, never really thinking of it as a career that I was going to pursue, but I definitely knew I love this and I love to do more of it, whether it be theater, whether it be, TV, film, whatever.
So it was back in like 1982, which was about 10 minutes ago, right? That went fast.
Oh, yeah. It's been a minute.
New York Minute. What happened in 1982? Decide to move out to Los Angeles and pursue, the acting degree, and have an opportunity to participate at, the drama school at the University of Southern California, which is really something exciting as you pursue that acting degree. Obviously you have the family, you're from home and hearth, close family in Dallas. What gave you the strength, resilience, and the passion to say, you know what, I love it here, but in order to do what I need to do, I got to go out to LA, to California. It's either LA or New York, and really pursue this and make this part of my dream. What was that like for you to uproot from the family in Texas and move out west and take your shot at everything?
Yeah, I mean, it really just came. I am incredibly close with my family, and grew up in a very close family. And even though my parents weren't, in the industry, so to speak, and they were doing quite different things, they were always super supportive. They always said, listen, we want you to do whatever it is you want to do. We support you, and just try and, be the best you can at it, and work hard, and, all those things. So having that great support was critical, because I loved being with my family, but I also knew that, and again, you have to, for most of the audience out there, who don't remember when there wasn't social media, or, cable with a million different stations, and
Right. And you had to ask for permission to make a collect
yeah,
call because it was expensive.
exactly. It was kind of a bigger deal from the standpoint of, there were only 3 networks
That's right.
at the time, and it was definitely taking a chance. But again, with their support, and I didn't really know where it was going to lead. I just knew it was something that I was interested and passionate about. Just like my dad was very interested and passionate about science and medicine, and my mom was passionate about what she was doing as well. So, I don't know. I never really thought of it like, because I was so close with my family, I just knew I'd be coming back a lot,
Right.
But especially just having their blessing and their
They
support.
were rooting you on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
Go follow your heart and your dream, right?
Yeah. So to me, I was just like, I'll give it a shot. Luckily, I had to audition for the program, which was an ordeal.
Pretty
But
intense.
it wasn't that intense. It was just, first of all, it was the first time I ever was on a plane by myself, because I'd have to fly out for the audition. So I flew out to LA, didn't know anybody out here. And so basically, you're flying out for this 10, 15-minute audition, and had no idea how that was going to go. But luckily, it went okay. But I left having no idea how I did. And then when I was accepted, I was pleasantly surprised, because they take a limited amount of, men and women for this program. There are about 30 of us in the program. And so I was ecstatic. And so I just thought, I'm going to give it a try. Didn't really know how much I would like or not Los Angeles, but I just figured I'd give it a try. Then when I came out here, was very lucky in that, I met a lot of really great people that are still very close friends to this day. And so, and was able to kind of pursue it and go to school. But the goal really was to just, complete the program and see what else happened. And again, not knowing if it was going to work out, but I also had other interest in, like I said, behind the scenes. I was interested in writing, directing. So I was kind of eyeing some other things, at the same time. But what happened is the acting thing kind of took off. Not to say that it wasn't, there definitely were a lot of rejection, going out on auditions, and, it's the life of an actor. But I was in school, so I was really trying to focus on learning my craft and trying to, be the best that I could in terms of just learning and soaking it all in. Not just acting, but, the other courses that I was taking at USC, and just trying to take advantage of all what was going on in Los Angeles in terms of the community and the theater there, and music and everything else.
Were you doing a lot of auditioning while you were studying in college?
I was. And the way that happened is when I was a freshman at USC, I got a role in a few different of the plays just down at USC, and I was just having fun, and what happened is a manager who was in the audience, I had no idea. But after the play, I got a note from somebody saying this person wanted to meet me. And, being the cautious kid from Texas, I was very kind of skeptical. I didn't really know what a manager I didn't know what that meant, but
So then you probably didn't know what a grip was at that time.
no, other than, what's on the end of a tennis racket.
Right. That's it.
But yeah, no, I was pretty ignorant in terms of, the business and everything, but I finally called this individual and just said, hey, saw me in the play, like to help me get an agent. And so really that was kind of the beginning. Once I got representation, I started going out on, basically some small TV and film projects. And that was when I was a freshman. And then that kept on, throughout my my time at USC. And like I said, you go on a lot of auditions and, it's a lot of thank you very much. But I was, again, the ignorance was bliss kind of thing. Cause I would go into an audition and I had been on auditions at that point for plays, right, in Dallas and so forth, but not really TV and film. And I went on my first audition out here, and I just remember kind of laughing because I walked into the room and, kind of said, hi, how y'all doing or something, with my Texas, small Texas accent. And there was just, it was kind of silent, like, oh, okay, I guess, I don't know. To be honest, some people were great and would say hi back and everything, but I realized that, this is very competitive but I just, it was hard for me to take that part of it seriously. I kind of was like, at that point, I decided, I want to take the work seriously, but the other stuff, because you hear all different things about the business and ego and this and that. And at that point, I was just kind of just out there as a kid trying to learn and go to school. And I think that really helped in some ways because it helped relax me. So I didn't feel, I definitely felt pressure, but it wasn't too much. I was able to kind of just say, I'm just all I can do is do my best, prepare the best I can, go in. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, easier said than done. Not, it definitely can hurt when you really want to roll and you don't get it. But I kind of kept at it. And again, with the team I had around me, the agent and the manager, just saying, hey, this is a process and you're not going to get everything, and just keep trying to learn from every experience. And I kept auditioning, and then, then every once in a while I would book something. And I think one of the first things I was going to say it was a Facts of Life episode, if you remember that show.
Sure. Yeah.
Which was it was great fun to work on and be on, and everybody was great.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go.
Jim Fields and Mindy Cohn.
Yeah.
Charlotte Rae and
they were great. They were so nice. And
so that was one of the first network gigs that you got, was that particular, because that was very hot at that time, very popular show, and to the exposure pretty great, to even if it's one episode, whatever it is, the exposure phenomenal.
No, I only did an episode, and but it was great. It was fun. It was shot on the Universal lot, and I remembered my one and only time to California, besides when I came out for that audition, was with my parents when I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. And I remember going on the Universal tour, with them. So then suddenly I was showing up, to work on this show on the Universal lot, and seeing the people on the tram taking the tour and stuff, which was really exciting. But actually it was funny as I was telling you the story of, getting one of my first roles, I realized it wasn't my first role. I think it was my second, my first network role was was and I probably blocked it out of my mind, because it was on a show called, if I don't black out on it, what's the name of it? It was with Lou Ferrigno, and at the time,
Not the Incredible Hulk.
no, it wasn't an Incredible Hulk. It was it'll come to me, but it was shoot. It was a show. It was kind of like an emergency type show. They were like paramedics and stuff, and different episodes. And it was Lou Ferrigno and someone else, not Z, but it was something like that. At any rate, the reason I remember that was the first really
it was
network.
V, wasn't it?
V, there you go. Okay,
sounds like.
There you go. Yeah, you got it. All right. Yeah.
We know it wasn't O or L.
And the funny thing is, the reason I just remembered that is because I was kind of traumatized by it, because the first role I had, I was playing a guy who was playing a video game, and a cobra gets loose and is in the video game arcade and like goes over my foot. And then Lou and the other guys, have to come in and save the day because there's this deadly cobra. And I, like Indiana Jones, have a major, major phobia of, I'm not a fan of snakes. So it was funny because on the one hand, I was going to these auditions and not getting most of them. And then I go on this audition, just another audition, go to it, leave it thinking, I'm never going to get this, who knows? And then I get the call saying, hey, you got the job. I was super excited until about, 20 seconds later, when I remembered, oh my God, I've got to do a scene with a deadly cobra. So talk about an acting exercise. It was a king snake that they painted to look like a cobra, by the way, but it was a real snake. And I didn't know, honestly, if I was going to be able to do it. And this was like my first, real thing out here in California. So that's probably why I blanked out when I was bringing it up earlier.
Here's right. You just remember the snake. That was it.
Yeah,
you did it, right?
I did it.
You did it. You sailed. You're a professional. You got it done. And you adopted the snake and took it home as a pet, right? You developed a relationship.
Definitely not.
And of course, Mr. Belvedere, and what an incredible group of people. We've had Eileen Graff on the show. She is a real delight, a real pro, a very talented person. And of course, the world stopped when we just lost the incredible and incomparable Bob Uecker recently. Yep. You had the opportunity to work with these two incredible veterans of the industry. And of course, we know Bob for his baseball announcing career as well. And he was just a real, and the beer commercials, everything that he did, he was just a real fantastic every guy's guy, and you had an opportunity to work with them. How did the whole opportunity to be cast in what became a beloved show with Christopher Hewitt and Tracy and Bryce and this wonderful family they put together, Mr. Belvedere on ABC, everybody was watching it. Everybody loved that show. At that time, like you said, with all these shows where there wasn't as much choice out there and all these 500 network channels and cable and everything, people really devoted their time to these shows. How did that opportunity come your way to be part of this incredible ensemble and Mr. Belvedere?
Yeah, first, I mean, it was it was an audition just like anything else. I was I believe I was in my junior year at SC, and oh boy, that's a long time ago. Look at that hair.
I love that shot. Yeah. Yeah, something you were always able to do with your eyes. It was either you look like you're ready to start laughing, or you're saying, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I actually remember that episode. But yeah, what happened is, Belvedere was the first regular series role that I auditioned for, and I got the call, and it was an audition like anything else. You go, and it's a room full of people. And then it gets whittled down, from that. and then you come back, you get callbacks, and then you come back and maybe meet the producers and on and on. And then ultimately for a network, at least at the time, that's the way it worked. And then you would go to network, and that was kind of like the last audition. And that was an experience. You would go, we went to ABC down in Century City. It's very intimidating, but basically it's like when it comes down to you and maybe one or two other people that are up for the same part, And so you kind of know going in, this is it, I had never experienced that because this was my first time auditioning for a regular series role. And again, being kind of ignorant to the whole process was a benefit because, I didn't really know what to expect. And long story short, went in and I when I found out that I got the part, I was ecstatic, and just a great opportunity. Once we then knew who the cast was, as you mentioned, I mean, they all are, they're my TV family. There's no really other way to describe it. And that's great that you had Eileen on. She is such a sweetheart, and she's my TV mom, and Bob, was super close to Bob as well. And unfortunately, we just lost Bob, and he's, he was a national treasure. He really was. And just a gift to all of us, but the opportunity to go and go to work every day and just laugh because Bob would just set the tone, was really just an incredible opportunity. So we actually just a few weeks ago, Bryce, Tracy, Eileen, and myself, we went out to Milwaukee. They did a celebration of life with the Milwaukee Brewers organization and his family, which, and I was very honored to be a part of just saluting him and honoring him. And that was a real honor just to be able to be a part of it. But it was also great being with Eileen and Tracy and Bryce, and it was a great chance to be together, but also just relive a lot of wonderful memories we had with Bob.
Oh, absolutely. What was really terrific about the casting was it was like you guys really were perfectly suited for one another. You all had your own individual personalities, played off each other very well with the humor and dramatic scenes as well. But it was like a family. All the puzzle pieces fit in terms of the way it was beautifully cast, of course, with Christopher Hewitt as Mr. Belvedere, another brilliant actor with an incredible background. What was it also like working with somebody like a Christopher Hewitt, who, was a beloved figure as well in the industry?
Yeah, Chris was great. Yeah, I loved Chris. And Chris, as I mentioned, Bob, on the one hand, and you said it yourself, regular guy, there was no hierarchy on our set. And a lot of that was set by the tone of Bob. But also,
that's what Eileen said when she was here. She said it was like a family. We love one another. We stayed in touch, and Bob sort of set that tone.
Yeah, definitely. And the crew as well, not just the cast. I'm still in touch with many of the members of the crew. So we were all kind of like one big family. But Bob, Bob would, he was a prankster, and he would, he wouldn't, again, he would take the work seriously, but not himself seriously. And he wouldn't let us really take it too seriously either, because he was, the one setting the tone, and we loved it, and then on the other side, you have Christopher Hewitt, this amazingly talented, theater trained, Tony nominated director, actor, with all this experience, British actor, an amazing background, and just a fantastic guy. So it was a great balance, and for me as a young actor, it was really perfect, because it gave me an opportunity to see, the professionalism of like a Christopher Hewitt, and I had ties to the theater because that's where I started, and the professionalism that he had. And then you have Bob Uecker, who was also would take the work seriously. And you would think that the two of them didn't get along with, kind of what was portrayed on the show and, them butting heads. But in all honesty, they loved each other. They really did. And they really respected each other. They loved each other. And they would, pull pranks on each other, but they would always also help each other. So as a young actor away from home, it was a great opportunity for me to witness kind of what was important and what were the things really to focus on, because, as you know, this industry can be kind of a heady business. And being a young actor away from their family, to have this TV family, and I'm including the kids in that too, who I'm still very close with, my TV brother Bryce and my TV sister Tracy. It was fantastic, because we always kind of kept each other in check and would do anything for each other.
Which is really amazing. And Eileen said that as well, that it really became a close-knit family, and they were sort of parental in their way as well, which sort of created this nice comfortability on the set. When you got an understanding of, okay, we're on a network show, people are watching, people are loving it. They're writing letters to Rob Stone, to all the rest. What was that like? How did you handle the fame, the success, the adulation, and everything that was coming? One of the things that I think I noticed in your performance, there was there's an old sensibility, old school way. You have a calming presence that was throughout, even where, it's been recognized by people. Like, for example, Andrew Greeley, writing in the New York Times, called your acting in a particular episode of Mr. Belvedere as very sensitive. And he discussed that the episode had a subtle interplay between two young people played by you and Debbie Barker, and provided some of the most touching and skillful scenes he's ever seen on television. You did seem to have this dry wit, this sensibility, but this steady calmness in that role of Kevin, which I think is present in who Rob is as well, which I think is a cool thing. But with that, here comes the success. Here comes all of the notoriety. How did Rob from Dallas handle that?
Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Andrew Greeley. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about our show, I think, where the writing was really good, and our writers, our producers, and we knew that first and foremost we were there to provide laughs, right, and to entertain, and that's great, but at the same time, we wanted it to be real. We wanted to play it honestly and truthful when we had scenes that called for that, and the particular episode that you mentioned, really was about that, with my character and kind of coming to terms with dating and making sure that other people weren't hurt, which happens a lot in dating, right? So they were, I can't take credit for that. I mean, that was really in the writing. And also we had some great directors, Noam Pitlick, Don Corvan, that allowed us to, when it was funny, play it for the laughs. When it was real, let's play it and try and be as honest as we could. So that was number one. And that's what I love, because that's really kind of the background that I came from, in theater. As far as when the show started gaining more and more of an audience and stuff, Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, my favorite part of the show was doing it in front of the live audience because of my theater background. It's like doing a play each week in front of a studio audience, and that was great. I love that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But there were these 4 boxes, right, with lenses on them, and I would try and trick myself to think we're just doing it for the audience, for the studio audience,
Right.
not these cameras that are capturing it, beaming it out to millions of people. And there's only 3 networks, and so then suddenly when you're out in public and people, see you and stuff, and it was a little odd, but I tried to, I don't know, treat it with sense of humor, but also it was a great opportunity when you have people come up and you get that immediate feedback of how you're doing your job. And if they like what you're doing and they want to meet you, or they want to, picture or whatever.
Or they want to marry you and date you and all the rest. That comes through too, right?
Not as much as like, not as much as like.
Look, folks, Rob, or is it Kevin that's turning red?
Yeah, I think Michael Fox and Kirk Cameron cornered most of that market, but no, it was, it definitely took some getting used to, but at the same time, most of that honestly were my folks. I think just in terms of the way I was raised, and they always kind of, the attitude of, you should treat everybody with respect, and you're no better or worse than anyone, but really you should just treat everybody with respect, and so anything along those lines, I have to credit my family with more than me. I just tried to, again, for me, I was excited to have the work, because this was, it was all new, especially, I mean, we ran for 6 seasons, but that first season, believe me, I mean, when we first did the pilot, and the dressing room was, I would compare it with my dorm room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was living in at the time. So it was, it was a little eye-opening, but I just tried to stay as grounded as I could, and also remind myself that, hey, you know what, we're doing this. It's a great opportunity. If it lasts a week, meaning the pilot, because most pilots don't even get picked up for series, as you know. So if it goes a week, that's great. If it goes, longer than that, had no clue that it would go as long as it did. But yeah, it was just an amazing learning experience, and a great opportunity to meet and work with some amazing people.
You mentioned Michael J. Fox, who is another incredible talent who's been doing it for a long time. He was actually, you were very inspired by him, right? He really sort of a mentor. You really looked up to Michael J. Fox, didn't you?
Definitely.
Still do. Yeah.
Definitely. Probably look up to him more now, even than then, with all he's done for Parkinson's, and his, what he's been able to do to shine a light and help other people with his own story is really, really inspiring and amazing. But yeah, no, at the time, again, being in Dallas, and I was a huge fan of Family Ties, and the guy is just amazingly talented, as everybody knows, and Back to the Future. And so, yeah, he was definitely a big inspiration, and also, was doing it well before I was. And so when I came out to LA and then started working on the show, he really was, I didn't know him. I met him a couple times, but just to be able to kind of, because he had meteoric success even beyond Family Ties, but to be able to watch the way he handled that, and handled staying grounded, even though, I was doing in a whole completely different category, but at the same time, I've just always been a really big fan of how he's handled his success, his life, and what he's doing now. He's a real hero.
He really is a terrific guy. Here's another cool shot we dug up.
Oh,
Boom.
oh Lord. That's
Do you
scary.
remember what this was? Was this an event with the Mr. Belvedere crew or something else? A
Yeah,
charity event?
no, this is one of
Baseball
those.
game?
No, this is tennis, and this is
Tennis,
one of those.
yes.
This is one of those pictures my daughters, Sabrina and Chelsea,
Found.
scour the internet for to just humiliate and laugh at me and embarrass me.
What are
So
kids for, right?
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones who sent it into you,
They
Jim.
they do it with love.
Yeah, they do, but they love to. Yeah, um,
You formed a great friendship, of course, like you said, with Bryce as well, and that's
yeah,
cool too, huh?
yeah. Bryce was, I think, 7 or 8 when I first met him, and the first thing he did right after our table reading is he came up to me. I just met him that day. He came up to me and he said, Rob, I just want you to know I've always wanted a brother, and I'm so happy because now I have one. And
Wow.
and my heart just melted, and I was like,
Wow.
okay,
Yeah.
we're now brothers,
You
for
were the big
for life.
brother.
Yeah. But he was great, and he is great. And at the time, 7, 8, knew everybody's lines, not only his own. He knew lines better than anybody. One of the smartest kids you could ever see. And yeah, and he's my brother, and so we still keep in touch. He's also an amazing writer, editor, director in his own right. He's awesome.
When you were on Mr. Belvedere, obviously the focus is on the scripts and the acting and working with cast and crew. It sounds like you were probably also really watching and paying attention to how it was being done, the producers, the camera people, just all of it, to soaking all of that in, because you have such an interest you're a brilliant director, producer, more. And that's a whole other side of your career that really flourished even after all of the rush of the acting. Were you always, when you were on these sets, on these TV shows, whether it was, an episode or two or something like a Mr. Belvedere, were you always paying attention to everything that was going on around you and how it was all, the magic was happening?
Yeah, I was trying to. I mean, I just naturally was interested and curious and wanted to learn. So definitely, I wouldn't spend much time away from the set, even if I wasn't in the scenes. I like to hang around and kind of see how everything was being put together. And on the Belvedere set, they were very supportive. Again, I mentioned a couple directors, Noam Pitlick, Don Corvan. They were super supportive. They knew that I was interested in directing and behind the scenes. So they would invite me into the booth, which is really like they never, or not never, but
Very rare.
they rarely do that, to let the actors into the booth, because that's where they can also kind of talk about you and make fun of people, all in fun, of course. But they would actually invite me in and let me kind of see the control room and how things worked, and how, the directors and the assistant directors would snap to go from camera 1 to camera 2 to 3, whatever. And I was just fascinated. I've always been fascinated in kind of the behind the scenes process, mostly in movies. But then when I was working on a 4-camera show, to be able to have the opportunity to learn from these, great, great directors and producers, and stage managers and everything, honestly. I just tried to soak it in, honestly. And it was really, really helpful.
In addition to Mr. Belvedere, you had an opportunity to be on a lot of other great shows that sort of stood the test of time. You're even on an episode of Silver Spoons, Ricky Schroeder and Company, huh?
I was indeed. I was
Yes.
indeed. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I do remember that.
Also, 21 Jump Street too.
Yeah, 21 Jump Street was a great experience. That was like fairly early on in their run.
Right.
And I was playing a completely different role than Kevin Owens. It was a very dramatic, dark kind of role. and I had an opportunity to work a lot of my, my scenes with Johnny, who was great, by the way. I mean, I knew
very serious actor, focused. Yeah.
Very, very serious, but also very fun. And again, this was before Johnny Depp fever really happened. The show, I think they were just starting their second season, if I'm remembering correctly.
And even the network, the Fox network, was brand new, so everything was launching then, right? It was big time.
So it was great. First of all, it was shot in Vancouver, so I was able to go and spend a couple of weeks in Vancouver where we shot this episode, and it was a single camera show, and the whole cast was just great to work with, and Johnny was really very generous with, with his time, but also working out the scenes. I mean, I just remember he was very very serious about the work, but just a really good guy, honestly. And Dustin Gwynn, who is a friend that I met on that show, also was really great to kind of hang out with and kind of see how they did things. But it was interesting because they were all, they were asking me questions about, because I had been on Belvedere for a few years, and they were just kind of getting going. And I just remember at the time thinking, wow, this is, you guys are going to really take off, because it was so evident by the talent.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really something. And Dom DeLuise's son was on there too, if I recall. And it was a great group of people who went on to bigger things as they went along. You mentioned, of course, The Facts of Life too. You also had an opportunity to be on episode of Matlock, I think, too. And what was it like working on that? And did you get a chance to rub elbows with the one and only Andy Griffith?
I did. Yeah, Andy was great. And yeah, that was in Wilmington, North Carolina, is where they shot that, because I think he lived there. And yeah, I mean, who isn't a fan of Andy Griffith? And I just remember growing up on the Andy Griffith Show, and with him and Ronnie Howard at the time. And just to be able to work with him was fantastic. He was great to work with. Again, really great cast and crew, very welcoming. And it was a really, really fun 2 weeks. But yeah, loved it.
People may recall, when they take a look at the repertoire of Rob Stone in terms of the performances, Facts of Life, the CBS School Break Special, Silver Spoons, Rags to Riches, 21 Jump Street, Terminal Entry, Crash Course, of course, a couple episodes of the ABC After School Specials. Those really, really popular during its day, and that was in 86 to 88. Of course, 118 episodes of Mr. Belvedere, and also, in addition, Matlock, and then Revenge of the Nerds as well.
Yes,
no, the daughters didn't send this. We dug this up. I dug this up.
Oh my God.
Tell us about.
That's so funny.
Hey, you are versatile. You are versatile.
Well, remember when I mentioned the mini pilots that don't get picked up? That was one of them. But it was a lot of fun to do. And
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was. We had a lot of fun. Juliette Lewis's brother was also on the show, and who was great to work with as well. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it didn't go anywhere too. It was just much,
it was
probably a good thing.
It was a thought. Yeah, I am Stamos as well, and. Of course, some of your own work as well. Producer on Shank for 13 episodes, that TV series. Tell us about that and how that came along.
Well, Shank came. I'm kind of a tennis nut. I'm a tennis addict.
I love tennis too. Yeah,
I play it, and
Do you try to get to the U.S. Open and the various
Yeah,
Indian Wells and?
yeah. I just I played it as a kid, and then I got kind of obsessed about it
Hmm.
later when I met some people that were into tennis out here, and so I play a lot. So really, it was a great opportunity to kind of do something where I could merge kind of the directing and producing with things that I'm passionate about. And I've been lucky enough to be able to do that in a couple different instances, whether that's with tennis or aviation or music and so forth. And in Shank, Shank is the best way to describe Shank was um, a little bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm. There was an improvisational element to it about a guy who goes to play on the tour and meets tennis pros, actual tennis pros, kind of like Arliss, if you remember that show, where they would have real, professional athletes on.
Right.
But it was a comedy, and it was a lot of fun. But it was all in the world of professional tennis. So we'd have episodes with like Venus Williams and Serena and Marty Fish and Andy Roddick, that kind of thing. But it was a lot of fun.
Some of the greats.
And
I got a chance to meet Andy. He was a nice guy. Andy and a couple of them, Andy Roddick, Jack Sock,
Yeah,
a
sure.
couple of some events here. I can't believe it's been this long ago, but it was back in 86 when you established Vienna Productions to make documentary films. And the first project was a short film on homelessness called The Sidewalk Motel back in 1990. And the film starred Christopher Hewitt.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. And wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago that you already had that rolling.
Yeah, it's been a while. But on my hiatuses from Belvedere, when we would take a break, in the summers and stuff, I was always off kind of writing and directing these short films. And then I had the opportunity to do a film called The Sidewalk Motel, and it was kind of a docudrama. It had a story to it, a narrative story with actors, but it also addressed the issue of young people out on the streets, in homelessness. And so through the story, you go and you meet, and we would actually interview some people that were unfortunately out on the street or homeless. And again, we wanted to play it real. We didn't want to, kind of dramatize or that aspect of it. And so we did. And Christopher was so generous and wonderful, and he wanted to be a part of it. So he plays a man who then meets somebody who's a teenage runaway, and then it's his 24 hours or so out on the streets with this runaway, and learns her story, but also meets other people. And what we did with the film, which is really cool, is we showed it theatrically. It was shot on 35 millimeter because Panavision heard about it, and they were nice enough to donate the cameras, and we showed it in theaters, and we did it as a fundraiser to raise awareness about homelessness, and also we called it the Canned Film Festival, unlike the Can, where people would just bring a can of food or cans of food to the theater, and we would use that as a fundraiser. They could also make donations, and we ended up doing it all over the country, including in Washington D.C., and representatives from the White House came, and Christopher came for a lot of those events to promote it, and was just wonderful. Yeah.
How cool to be in a series like Mr. Belvedere with somebody like a Christopher Hewitt, and then have the opportunity to cast him in something that you're involved in creating and producing, sort of like a full circle moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I was so, just grateful and still am that he even wanted to be a part of it. And he went all in. I mean, we didn't have a big budget by any means. This wasn't a network or studio type film. This was a short film that, we were out on the streets, and we had like a chair for him, but we didn't have dressing rooms and stuff. And he was a trooper. He was there at all hours of the day and night, and was really just wonderful. So it was really special to have him be a part of it.
To have that opportunity really is something. And, you've had this wonderful celebration of the Blue Angels through some of your incredible documentary work. For those that know Rob, of course, from Mr. Belvedere and other shows, you've seen him on television for years and film and more. He is a brilliant, noted documentary film maker, director, producer. And you've had this wonderful relationship really celebrating Blue Angels in various forms. How did that whole thing come together, and that wonderful relationship and your desire to want to really focus on and celebrate the incredibleness of them?
Yeah, thank you. So the way that happened was actually I was lucky enough to get a ride with the team way back when, and they train in El Centro, California. They're based in Florida. They're based in Pensacola, but they train in the desert in California, in El Centro. And I didn't even know they did this, but then I got a call and they said, "Hey, do you want to take a backseat ride with the Blue Angels?" And I was like, I thought it was a joke. And I was able to go out and not only get the flight, which was incredible, but also to meet the team. And they had, they were familiar with some of my work and what I was doing, and they knew I was directing and stuff. And I just got to know them, and I was just fascinated with them as a fan, really. And so they would, I would go back. They would have me down to El Centro from time to time, or when they were in town. And then what happened is they found out they were going to go on their first European tour in over 2 decades. And it was a historic tour. They were going to go to Russia and Bulgaria and Romania and these former Eastern Bloc countries. It was 8 countries in just under 3.5 weeks. So it was a whirlwind, and they wanted to document it. And they asked me if I wanted to be considered, and have my, my name in the hat, so to speak. So I jumped at the chance. I wrote up a proposal thinking this is never going to happen because I'm not part of the Navy. But I thought they would just go, internally and use someone there. But they liked a lot of my ideas. They invited me out there. I just kind of did a whole pitch, and they said, we want to go forward. And that ended up being turned into a 2-hour special on A&E and the History Channel called Around the World: The Speed of Sound. And it was an amazing.
Hosted by Dennis Quaid, right?
Hosted by Dennis Quaid. Yeah. I'd seen Dennis Quaid in The Right Stuff, which was one of my favorite movies. And I also knew
the Ivory Restaurant in Santa Monica.
What was that?
I saw him in the Ivory Restaurant in Santa Monica.
Oh, you did? Okay, there you go. Yeah,
nice guy.
So, yeah. So, and again, I just asked him. He was the top of my wish list when I was thinking of people that could host that documentary, because I love The Right Stuff, and reached out to him and again through a friend who knew someone was working with him. He heard about it, said, "I'm in." He flew his own plane down to El Centro for us, and then ended up being the host of that, and he was great.
It actually won the Cable Ace Award too. It was it aired on A&E, which at that time was the Arts and Entertainment Network. It wasn't necessarily all the reality shows and everything you see on there now. That and Bravo were totally different when they were created. History Channel, but you got the Cable Ace Award, I think, around '95 for that, huh?
I did. I was knocked out. The most special part of that evening was my parents were there. And that was really cool. But it was a total surprise. And yeah, I'm very proud of that. And again, it wasn't just me. We had a fantastic crew that I worked with, and of course the team were amazing. And then, as you alluded to and showed that one of those other pictures, we just did another. We did an IMAX feature film with the Blue Angels that I was one of the executive producers of. Great director named Paul Crowder was part of it. Glenn Zipper, Greg Wooldridge, the only 3-time leader of the Blue Angels, and a close friend. Glenn Powell was part of that, and it was really just a talk about a full circle moment. It was a great opportunity to not only work with the team again, but also to be able to kind of bring it into the 21st century with the technology, with the cameras. To be able to shoot it in IMAX was a dream. And yeah, we showed that that was in theaters this past year, and now is on Amazon Prime for anyone who has Amazon Prime.
That's really incredible. Some of the other documentaries that you directed or produced as part of the production company, Thunder Over the Pacific, hosted by Candice Bergen, and Into the Wild Blue, hosted by Tom Skerritt, which you showed. Those both aired on the History Channel, something really quite special, and some terrific, you've worked with so many great people, not just as an actor, on set with some of these luminaries, but also in '98, you directed One Vision, a documentary about film directing, and had these incredible interviews featured by people like Martin Scorsese, Oliver Stone, Quentin Tarantino, and Sidney Pollack, Rob Reiner, Penny Marshall, Ron Howard, who we mentioned as well. What an amalgamation of incredible people who are in the film world. What was it like working with all of them and putting that together?
Again, it was a dream. I mean, all the people you named were heroes to me, and being a huge film nerd and film buff, I just looked at these people. I still don't know how they do what they do, but then to have the opportunity to be behind the camera and be the one asking questions about not only how they do what they do, but why they do what they do and how much they love the medium of film. That was just a lot of pinch me moments, really. And I would just try and ask questions, stay out of the way and not screw it up, and just let them, talk and let their brilliance take over. But yeah, they were fantastic. And they also knew we were, one of the main goals of the film was to help future filmmakers and to, make it so for others to learn. And so they weren't there to sell anything. It wasn't part of a press junket or anything. It was just talking about why they love the craft of directing. I had seen a film before that called Visions of Light that was about cinematographers. It's a great documentary. I highly recommend it if anybody loves movies. And I just remember watching that and thinking, there should be something like this for directors. And through working with the Directors Guild of America and reaching out to some of these amazing filmmakers, we didn't know who we were going to get. It's kind of like the same thing as I mentioned with Dennis Quaid. I kind of had a wish list that I wrote together of these directors that would be fantastic if we got one of them in the film. And what happened is we got one, and then it snowballed, and more people, then heard about it, I guess, and wanted to be a part of it. So it was a amazing opportunity.
You've had so many too, which is really quite amazing. And going back to Mr. Belvedere, it's hard to believe we are talking about the 40th anniversary of that series. That's something really special. Could you imagine still talking about a series on television that you were a part of that people still reference, that's still in, the annals of television history with beloved characters? People can still sing the theme song and so much more. Uh, 40 years later, and congratulations to you and everybody involved in it, and to celebrate the 40th anniversary right now. What I mean,
thank you. Although I'm feeling really ancient right at the moment. It's so funny because when people brought that up about that it's the 40th anniversary, I tried to wrap my head around. I couldn't wrap my head around it, honestly. And I went back and I was like, okay, when did we shoot the show? And then I was like, well, what was 40 years before that? Just to give myself that context. And I'm like, okay, that was like the end of World War II. So I'm like, okay, this is really making me feel really, really old. I'm just going to tell people I was a 1-year-old when the show started.
You were a 1-year-old. You were in a bassinet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's amazing. And there have been some appearances that you guys have done, like you said, together as a group, the remaining cast, in celebration, I guess, of the 40th, marking that 40th.
Yeah, we have. What's the greatest thing about that is number one, it gives us a chance to be together, with the TV family, which is always great.
Oh yeah.
And catch up, and that's awesome. But then, to be honest with you, I'm kind of shocked that people even remember, the show and the level of detail that sometimes they remember about episodes better than I do, and it's really gratifying and it kind of blows me away. But it's so special to be able to actually sometimes meet and connect with people that say, that said that the show, what the show meant for them, how it helped them, how particular episodes really helped them through some tough times. That's really incredible. I mean, that really just amazes me on a daily basis. Not only that people remember the show, but also just the what it meant to them, and that's really cool to be a part of something like that.
It's amazing, and maybe the pandemic spurred some of it on, but people lately, with all the craziness going on in the world and everything and unpredictability, they have really been hearkening for and craving shows they grew up with, shows that have a warmth, a family feel to it, the innocent humor, that kind of stuff, whether it's Mr. Belvedere or Growing Pains or even the Dick Van Dyke Show, whatever it is, there's a real thirst. And that's why these nostalgic networks, the Me TVs, the Antenna TVs, the Cozy TVs exist, because people are really craving that. And there was something that was unique about the shows in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, and the way they were done and the way they were shot and the warmth and the feeling, especially these family style shows, that people, I think, are really searching for. And it's like there's a rebirth, and new generations are rediscovering shows like a Mr. Belvedere, talking 40 years ago, but to younger generations, it's like a whole new thing, right? That's a cool thing to have happen.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly hope so. I mean, as you know, the world is pretty crazy right now, and there's a lot of divisiveness and I think people like to be reminded of just situations and ways that we all are more alike than our differences, and that's really that's really, I think, what's great about a lot of these shows, but and some of the other projects that, even with the Blue Angels, the IMAX project, the idea really was, let's find something where everybody can kind of agree on, in terms of just trying to find who we are when we're, as our best, when we're at our best, and to have a reminder of what's really important, and to treat each other with kindness and respect, and try and just be something, that's positive, that's out in the world. Because as you know, there's just so much negativity, and it's so I'm super proud to have been at least some part of projects that hopefully bring people together and not separate them.
Did you ever think a show like Mr. Belvedere would still be talked about and celebrated 40 years later? A lot of people will say, no, we were just doing the work. It was a job. We had to, get
Yeah.
it done. We didn't realize what it would mean to people, all these years later, that they still talk about it, and they know all the characters, and some of them even know, the word by word dialogue and the episodes. And
Yeah, no, I had no idea whatsoever. None whatsoever. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, in
it
terms
really
of
is.
the feedback that you hear from people and what it meant to them. And also that it still holds up. I mean, I still hear from people who watch it, whether it's on YouTube or the DVDs or, whatever. And that's great, and again, that's credit to our writers, and I remember even at the time, the writers talking about wanting to create something that wasn't super time specific,
Right.
like universal elements that families deal with all the time.
Evergreen. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been amazing. I'm just very, very thankful.
Couple people watching wanted to know, and I think you pretty much answered it, and it was something that I knew already. Neva says, do you still stay in touch with Eileen Graff? And the answer, yeah, right? You definitely, yeah.
Was with Eileen. Yeah, I was with Eileen just a couple of weeks ago when we went on our trip to Milwaukee to honor Bob.
And speaking of Bob, Gary wanted to know, and again, I'm sure the answer is absolutely yes. Did you stay in contact with Bob Uecker, and were you also friends with him until his passing not that long ago? We're still friends and in touch with Bob.
Definitely. Yeah.
Viewers
Bob,
love knowing that. They love knowing that, and they hope that the cast, that the family that they saw on TV, the people that they grew up with, that they admire and revere, these characters, these performers, they actually love hearing when a cast stays together or people stay in touch like that. And that's something that Eileen said was the case. And it's not always the case in television.
Right. No, that's true. And no, Bob was the best. I mean, he lived in Milwaukee, so I didn't see him as much as like Eileen, Tracy, and Bryce. But I went out to Milwaukee a couple times, stayed with him, and then every year, birthdays and that kind of stuff, we would always call each other and catch up, and he would just make me literally laugh so hard that I was crying, tears. Like he only could, but he was the greatest. Like I said, heart of gold, great guy, and yeah, I loved him very much. He was just fantastic. So,
do you have a favorite episode or two from Mr. Belvedere, as we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of that series? Is there an episode or two that was a personal favorite for you?
Well, a couple. I mean, speaking of Bob, there's a couple. One is called The Contract, which was about a serious issue. It was about drinking and driving as a teen, and where you'd sign a contract to your parents that you wouldn't drink and drive if you went to a party. And that was a fun episode to play because Kevin got to be drunk and play that. But the off-screen story of that was Bob decided that for that week he wanted to help me be more of a method actor. So he said, you know what, I'm going to take you out to Dan Tana's, which is a local place. It was one of his favorites here in town. And so he and his wife, Judy, took me to Dan Tana's and basically got me plastered. I won't lie. But I guess as preparation for the role, of course, just.
Well, of course, you got to really taste that role.
Right. He wanted me to know what a real hangover felt like. But I will say they both were the ones who drove me home, made sure that I landed face first in my bed and got me there safely. But no, that was really a fun episode to do. And also one that I still hear from people that said that it really helped them in battling whatever they were battling at the time, or that they just really enjoyed the episode. And then another one that also involved Bob, it was called The Letter. And I think you actually had a shot of it up earlier. And basically that one was where Bob, my TV dad, was kind of putting too much pressure on Kevin to play football. And Kevin really didn't want to play football. He had other interests. So it was about, when you put too much pressure on your kids, especially to play sports or fulfill a dream that they had. And anyway, it was very dramatic. I mean, there was a dramatic scene that we had toward the end of that. And like I mentioned before, we really wanted to play it real. And there were a lot of laughs and jokes throughout the episode, but then this final scene was probably the most dramatic scene that I had on the 6 years I was on the show. And it was with Bob. It was, confronting my dad about this. And the coolest thing was Bob really wanted to get it right. Like people know him as the, major league, and he's such a natural and he's so funny.
Personality, and
which he is. But he really wanted to play this truthfully. And so he would always come up and say, hey, Rob, you want to run lines? And let's do that last scene. And so we worked on it. And then we did it in front of the live audience. And Bob nailed it. He really did. I mean, it was really amazing. And there's a great moment. We reconcile at the end. And it was one of my favorite memories of the episode, because it just, it seemed to mean a lot to a lot of people and help a lot of people, but also just, seeing that commitment. And a lot of people hadn't seen that side of Bob, and the heart and the vulnerability that he had as well. So that's a really special one to me too.
Now, was the show dropped and then brought back? Was there something that happened there?
You're right.
People might not remember that part. They just remember the run of it, but not a little dip, and then here we are again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, we were basically canceled, is what we were told. And so we found out, I think, on our hiatus, and I was actually doing a play at the time. And so, we were all heartbroken because we weren't going to be able to be all together again. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened. I'm not sure if it was partly a letter writing campaign or what, but lo and behold, they reversed course and said, you know what, we want to bring you back. And not only do we want to bring you back, but there was a threat of an actor's strike that was coming up. So they wanted to bring us back early to bank episodes, to tape episodes just in case there was a strike. So suddenly, we went from being a canceled show to, coming back. And then we ended up going another 2 or 3 seasons that were our strongest, at least from a rating standpoint, our strongest seasons. So it was pretty amazing.
Wasn't it a mid-season replacement type of thing in the beginning? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what I was referencing earlier when we did the pilot. For those that don't know, you shoot the pilot and then they test it or whatever. And then most pilots don't get picked up. and we were going to be a mid-season replacement if our show went, meaning that we were going to join, mid-season to all the other shows that were on the air. And so there was never any guarantees that we were going to last. I mean, a lot of the mid-season replacements are only there kind of to fill the rest of the season before they get another show. But what happened is our show just kind of, it definitely wasn't a critic's favorite early on, like, with a big, like, Moonlighting or Facts of Life or whatever, but we were always an audience favorite. So the audience is the one who found us and kept the word of mouth going. And then the show started picking up steam, and we would, because we would get, after the mid-season replacement, we'd be picked up for maybe 6 shows. Most shows at the time, a full season was 22. We'd get picked up for 6. So we never knew. We're like, well, we're going to do maybe a total of 7 episodes, and then it just kept going and got more popular and more popular. And that's really thanks to the audience.
The audience, the letter writing campaigns, people, would always have the ability to contact the network or even the toothpaste sponsor or whoever it was. And that's the power of the people, which is really fantastic. It's really a blessing to be affiliated with that show and all the shows. A lot of years of great entertainment and television and film that you've brought our way and continue to as the consummate director and producer, really picking unique projects to showcase for all of us, Rob. And I know there's a lot of people that are watching that remember that Rob and are so happy to see this Rob and the same guy with the same heart and soul and caring about what he does, and is really, authentic, a straight shooter, which I think is fantastic too. And what are some cool things maybe that are coming up that you're excited about, you might be working?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm just still, I'm in the documentary world. I've got my production company. We do primarily documentaries and specials, but again, we just did the IMAX film. We're working on another a documentary project right now. I just got back from Italy that really is focused more on innovation and technology. So we were able to be at a gathering where there were a lot of like these amazing experts all in one place that we could interview, and that hopefully will be finished probably next year. So it's been fun.
Any desire to get back into acting, or if they had a certain role that was really something you really wanted to be a part of, would you jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I never say never. That's for sure. And I honestly do miss working with actors. I've done it some. I've directed some theater, and I've worked with actors in different capacities. So I really enjoy that, whether I'm behind the camera working with actors. As far as acting, I guess it would just depend on the project and the role, but yeah, I definitely would be open to the idea if it was right for everybody.
Yeah, exactly right. What would you say to somebody watching who's looking at a Rob Stone, has followed him, all these years, sees television work, film work, here's now about this other work that you do in documentaries, and said, gee, I would like to do that. And, they're in a town somewhere and they want to go off to LA or New York and study. Have you ever done any teaching, mentoring? Is that something that you enjoy to do as well, since you're such a seasoned veteran in the industry?
Well, to answer your question, yeah, I have done some teaching. I've and some coaching with actors and love working with young people and really all ages. But no, I mean, I would just say to whatever it is, just it's really the same advice my parents gave to me. I mean, honestly, just know that everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own journey. There's not like a cookie cutter way to do it, but whether that's in the arts, whether, no matter what it is in whatever field, really just to, if you have a dream, to really just kind of go after it. But no, it can't only be a dream, right? It's gotta be backed up with a lot of hard work and perseverance. And ultimately, you'll get to a place. It may change a little bit along the way, but that's okay too. But, as Jim, as you well know, the amount of time that you spend doing your work, it's a good thing if you enjoy in what you're doing, and then it doesn't feel like work. You're doing something, and especially if you're doing it that has some purpose behind it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any great words of wisdom, but that's kind of the advice I'd pass along.
It's good stuff. Absolutely. It really is. Before we wrap up, what would the Rob Stone of now say to this Rob Stone?
Somebody fix your hair, for God's sake. Why did you do that? Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what I would say to that Rob Stone.
Now, what a lot of people always say, if I remember to ask that, a lot of people say things like, talk to the earlier version of themselves, even when they were a kid. It's going to be okay. Relax. Everything's going to turn out well. Just keep going forward. Notice a lot of people point in that direction when they talk to the earlier version of themselves, where they were running around and trying to slay the dragon and say yes to everything and do everything and be everywhere. And now, they're more content, and they pick and choose what they want to do that speaks to who they are. And there'll be a lot of that earlier picture of them, and they're like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. Just breathe. Just
yeah, exactly. I think that's dead on. I think it's really just, when you're young, you think everything is so important. Every decision is so important. And I think it's important just to keep in mind and keep things in perspective. And also just, again, just to be true to yourself, to your values, remember who you are, and realize that, it's going to work out one way or the other. And that's half the battle is that, belief, and keeping that belief in yourself, but also in the people that you care about.
Absolutely, my friend. You're truly the best. I appreciate the generosity of time and taking us down, memory lane as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Mr. Belvedere, but also sprinkle in some of the other things that you had an opportunity to work on, and the people you've worked with through the years as well, and projects that you're proud of, that you're directing and you're creating and you're producing and sharing with us too. Keep at it, my friend, really. And thanks for all the years of entertainment and joy and humor and curiosity that you've brought into our lives as somebody that works in the industry, but also appreciates you and everything you've done. I totally understand what it takes, and the tenacity, and being out there and doing what you love now as the director producer. You're in a sweet spot, Rob Stone, and a pleasure to have you here on the Jim Masters Show. I hope you'll come back and see us again. I always say we'll keep the porch light on for the guests, and I hope you enjoy the time with me as much as I have with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Jim, and really appreciate your questions and your research, and really been a pleasure. So thanks so much.
The pleasure is all mine. You be well, best to the family, and congratulations on everything, my friend. And we'll talk again soon. And happy 40th to Mr. Belvedere.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. Thanks,
and
everybody.
Bob and Christopher, he's done good, hasn't he? They're with us. They're with us in spirit. You be well, Rob, and thanks again for the generosity of time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Cool guy, great guy, right? Rob Stone, you've seen him for years on television and film, and of course on Mr. Belvedere on ABC. But what's really cool about the conversations we have here on the show versus just a typical interview, you got a chance to really learn more about Rob. You know about Kevin, of course, Kevin Owens, but now about Rob and all the other wonderful things that he's had an opportunity to do. He's got a wonderful family as well. And of course, there's his TV family with the whole gang, and Bryce and Tracy and Eileen and Christopher and good old Bob Uecker, who we just lost recently. on the beloved Mr. Belvedere, which we were talking about 40 years. Could you imagine? It's 40 years since that show hit the airwaves on ABC. The facial expression he has there is like, I can't believe it's 40 years. You got to be kidding me. But yeah, so many great photos, so many great memories. And what was really nice to hear, and I heard it when Eileen was here, Eileen Graff, who played the mom on Mr. Belvedere. If you didn't see that episode, it's archived on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. You can see when Eileen was with us. She's a brilliant performer, a wonderful, gifted person. They've stayed together over the years as well, and they've stayed friends. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And there's, great group right there. You see Tracy and everybody there in that shot. Talking about Mr. Belvedere himself, Christopher Hewitt, the consummate actor, and some wonderful conversations about working with the cast and the crew and Bryce and, of course, Tracy as well. And all the other shows and series that he was a part of, specials and so much more. And yeah, he's been in the vernacular for a long time, lovingly remembering his buddy who played his dad on the series, the one and only Bob Uecker, and some poignant scenes and memories he's had, and great memories with, of course, Eileen as well, and other shows that he had opportunities to, pop into. And of course, the Blue Angels, and many other things too. In addition to the Blue Angels, he also, which was really fantastic, had an opportunity to work on a 30th anniversary special featuring Billie Jean King and Sir William Arster, which I think is incredible. And he's worked with Richard Dreyfuss and on and on and on. This, of course, the Blue Angels that you're looking at there. Thanks for watching, everybody, and all the great comments coming in, taking you down memory lane and hearing about some new things from our very special guest, the one and only Rob Stone. If you enjoyed this episode here on the Jim Masters Show, well, do something special. Give us a thumbs up like on our YouTube channel. This is now archived, so you can see it again. You can watch it over and over. You can share it. Share the link on your social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel where there are hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Celebrity friends, special guests stopping by, JMS. Jim Masters TV is the channel. Drop a comment below. What's your favorite Rob Stone memory from the shows, from Mr. Belvedere? 40 years. It's amazing. And give this episode a thumbs up like. We love that. It's always great to have you with us and to interact with us here on the show as well. Thanks for all the great comments. Anthony says, great interview, Jim. Good to see Rob. Wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And Kathleen, thank you. She's in New York City. Glad you enjoyed it as well. Jane watching in Sweden, very happy to learn more about Rob's career. You're in Sweden. These shows that we talked about have aired, around the world, morning, noon, and night. Thanks for all these great comments, folks. We really appreciate it. One more time, we thank Rob Stone. I was always familiar with his career and his background and all these shows we talked about. And it was so cool to dive in and have a good, solid, old school conversation with Rob and learn more about him. And he's very passionate about what he does. And he's got a steady way about him, which I think is really good, a focus. And I think it is the family upbringing, growing up in Dallas, the family nature. He had an early start with a loving family, a close relationship with a family that really makes a huge difference for when you tackle the rest of what the world has to offer. Rob Stone here, and one more time, congratulations, 40th anniversary, Mr. Belvedere and company. Cool stuff. Hey, gang, this is Jim Masters thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we'll keep the porch light on for you as well. Come back and see us. If this was your first time watching the Jim Masters Show, well, porch light is on for you as well. Come by and see us again. Thanks for all of the interactivity. A lot of great comments piling in here. We'll take a look at those throughout and check out some of those projects that Rob was talking about. And the next time you see a rerun of Mr. Belvedere, you're going to have a new, fresh perspective on that beloved series. We appreciate you being with us as well. Come see us again. Don't forget to love one another, as we always say. We need that more now than ever. And take care of one another and do the very same for yourself. We'll keep that light on for you. Come see us again. Be well, everybody, and cheers. Thanks for watching.